fresh gists, royal secrets. If you haven't joined the family yet, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't be left outside while the palace gate is open. Join us for the most exclusive updates. A king is in chains, not of iron, but of a spiritual oath. A queen is on her knees, her tears soaking the palace floor. A mysterious tree is screaming like a dying man, and the very foundation of the land of the golden crown is shaking. A quick prayer for you. As you watch this, may every hidden chain in your own life be broken, and may your tears turn into a testimony of restoration. Amen. The atmosphere in the land of the golden crown has turned cold, my people. If you were there, you would feel the heaviness in the air, like a thick cloud that refuses to move. The golden king, a man known for his power and his command, was recently seen in a state that many never thought possible. He wasn't sitting on his throne with pride. Instead, he was trapped in a moment of pure agony. Beside him was Queen Naomi. Now, we all know the bond they share, but what happened this time was different. She wasn't just standing by him, she was holding his hands, and her eyes were like a river of tears. The golden king was speechless. For the first time, the lion of the kingdom looked powerless. He was looking at his wife, his heart heavy with a guilt that words cannot explain. He knows that the wahala happening right now isn't just ordinary. It's the result of choices he made years ago. Imagine a king, great and mighty, but his soul is being tossed around by his storm he created. As Queen Naomi knelt there, she didn't mock him, she didn't remind him of his mistakes. Instead, she whispered words of faith. She told him that her God is greater than the confusion, greater than the noise of the enemies, and bigger than any secret hidden in the dark. But even as she spoke these words of power, she was weeping. The pain was deep. Now let's go back a bit so you can understand why this situation is so die-hard. Many of you Crown Geese friends and families have been asking, why can't he just send those other women away? Why is he keeping them if there's no peace? Well, the truth is finally coming out, and it's darker than we imagined. It didn't start today. The roots of this problem go back to 2016. There was an oath, a deep spiritual binding that the golden king entered into. People thought there was peace among the women in the palace, but we have now found out that the peace was a total RNG. It was fake. It was a cover-up to hide the spiritual war happening behind closed doors. The Golden Crown elders and the people around are tired. They want to see the palace cleansed, but every time they move, they hit a spiritual wall. Some say the things that happened during that oath-taking are things that the human tongue cannot even speak. If I tell you some of the details I heard, your hair will stand on end. It involves things that go beyond the physical. The Golden King wants to be with Queen Naomi. She's the only one his heart truly desires, but he is like a man tied with an invisible rope. Every time he tries to move towards complete freedom, the rope pulls him back. This isn't just about a husband and wife fighting. This is about ancient foundations and secrets that was supposed to be buried forever. As the sun sets over the land of the Golden Crown, the question remains, how do you break a bond that was sealed with more than just words? The king is mourning, the queen is praying, and the enemies are watching from the shadows, waiting for the Golden King to finally break. The story is just getting started. Should I reveal what happened when the priests arrived?
My Crown Gist friends and families, keep your eyes open because the story is about to enter a level that will make you wonder if this is still reality or a movie. But in the land of the Golden Crown, reality is often stranger than fiction. The tension in the palace reached a breaking point when the Golden King realized that his own strength could no longer save him. The secret he had been carrying since 2016 was no longer just a weight on his mind. It had become a physical manifestation of chaos. The women in the palace, those who many of you had been asking about, became the center of a spiritual deadlock. The Golden King desperately wanted them gone. He wanted his palace back. He wanted his peace back. He wanted his life with Queen Naomi to be free of these shadows. But every time he tried to take a step to authorize their exit, it was as if his voice would fail him. That was when the decision was made to bring in reinforcements from outside the borders. They didn't just call local people, they went as far as Cuba and Ghana to bring in those who understand the language of the spirits. First, the priest from Cuba arrived. When he stepped into the palace of the land of the Golden Crown, he didn't even wait to be served water. He stopped at the entrance, his eyes moving, as if he was seeing people that others couldn't see. He pointed his staff toward the inner courtyard and told them that the atmosphere was suffocating. He told the Golden King point blank, there is a debt from 2015 and 2016 that has not been paid. You are trying to chase away shadows, but the shadows have a legal right to stay because of the blood that spoke back then. My people, can you imagine the Golden King's face at that moment? The guilt we talked about earlier doubled. Then came the Ghanaian priest. This one was even more direct. He spent 3 days walking around the palace ground in total silence. On the first day, he stopped in front of a massive ancient tree that stands deep within the palace walls. Now, for those of you who don't know, that tree has been there for generations, but nobody knew it held a dark secret tied to the current Golden King. The priest turned to the Golden Crown elders and said, if you want the king to be free, this tree must be uprooting. But be warned, the tree is no longer just wood and leaves. It has become a container for the oath he took. The Golden Crown elders were hesitant. Uprooting a tree in the land of the Golden Crown is not a small thing. It's a heavy ritual. But they saw their king wasting away. They saw the tears of Queen Naomi, who was still on her knees, fasting and calling on the name of her God. So the order was given, bring the tools, uproot the tree. My crown gist friends and families, this is the part where people started running for their lives. As the workmen and the priests began to dig around the roots, the sky suddenly turned dark. Not the darkness of rain, but a strange yellowish gloom. And then it happened. A sound started coming from the trunk of the tree. At first, it sounded like a low whistle, but as they dug deeper, the sound turned into a loud, piercing wail. It was the sound of a human being crying in total agony. The tree was screaming, my people. It wasn't just a noise. You could hear words in the wailing, cries of betrayal, and reminders of the old oath. The ground began to vibrate. The workmen dropped their shovels and took to their heels. Even some of the Golden Crown elders, men who had seen everything, started backing away in terror. Inside the palace, the Golden King collapsed. It was as if every hit to the tree's roots was a hit to his own body. He was gasping for air, clutching his chest. Queen Naomi rushed to him, her voice rising in prayer, shouting that the God of Elijah, who answers by fire, should intervene. She refused to run. Even when the ominous sound from the tree became so loud that it felt like the palace walls would crack, she stayed there, holding his husband, her tears mixing with the sweat on his forehead. The Ghanaian priest tried to continue, but the spiritual pushback was too much. He shouted that the tree was refusing to leave because the people who were part of the 2016 oath were still holding on to the other end of the spiritual rope. He said, until the heart of the one who tied the knot is fully severed, this tree will not move and the king will not breathe. The chaos was total. People were fleeing the palace, shouting that the ancestors were angry. But was it the ancestors, or was it the consequence of a man trying to play God with his own destiny? The women who were supposed to be sent away were seen on a balcony, watching the chaos with cold, silent smiles. They knew something the rest of the world didn't. They knew that as long as that tree stood, they were going nowhere. The Golden King looked at Queen Naomi and whispered, "Maybe I am beyond saving." But Queen Naomi, with a fire in her eyes that could burn through stone, looked him back and said, "My God is not a man that he should lie. If he said restoration is coming, then the tree must fall and you must live." The battle has moved from the physical to a level where only the strongest can survive. The land of the Golden Crown is at a crossroads.
We have reached the final hour. The air in the land of the Golden Crown was so thick you could almost cut it with a knife. That massive crack from the tree had everyone frozen in place. The Ghanaian priest shouted for everyone to move back, warning that when a spiritual foundation breaks, it doesn't go down quietly. The Golden King was gasping, his hands tightly gripped by Queen Naomi. As the wind continued to howl, the Oloris, including Olori's shadow and the TikTok Olori, were seen looking towards the courtyard with faces full of confusion. For the first time, their confidence was shaking. The fake peace they had built since 2016 was cracking right along with that tree. Then, with one final earth-shaking roar, the tree began to tilt. It wasn't just falling, it was being uprooted by an invisible force. As the roots came out of the ground, people screamed. Buried deep beneath where that tree stood, they found strange items, things wrapped in old cloths, tied with rusted chains, and symbols of the oath that had kept the Golden King in spiritual prison for years. The wailing sound reached a fever pitch, one last scream that sounded like 1,000 voices crying out at once, and then boom! The tree hit the ground. The moment it landed, the heavy yellowish cloud over the palace vanished. The Golden King took a deep, sudden breath, like a man who had just been rescued from drowning. His eyes cleared, and for the first time in days, he recognized everyone around him. Queen Naomi fell to her knees, but this time it wasn't in sorrow, it was in total worship. She had stood her ground against the shadows of 2016, and her faith had held the Golden King's soul in place. The Golden Crown elders stood in awe, realizing that the power of the oath had finally been broken by a higher authority. But my Crown G's friends and families, even as the tree lay dead on the ground, the work was not finished. The spiritual debris still had to be cleared. The priest from Ghana mourned that while the tree is down, the women involved must now face the reality of their actions. The fake peace is gone and the truth is out in the open. The Golden King is now on a journey of total restoration, but it won't be an overnight walk. He has to face the consequences of his past choices while leaning on the strength of the jewel who refused to leave his side. The land of the Golden Crown is breathing again, but the whispers in the palace haven't stopped. Some say the Oloris are already planning their next move, while others believe that the power of Queen Naomi's God has permanently sealed the gates against any further darkness. One thing is for sure, the king has his life back, but the scars of the 2016 oath will remain as a reminder that what you sow, you shall surely reap. Please note, my Crown G's friends and families, all the information shared in this story is based on rumors and alleged reports making the rounds on social media. These are unverified facts and should not be taken as absolute facts. We are only bringing you the gist as it is being discussed in the digital space.
Things have reached a level where even the air in the land of the Golden Crown feels like it's vibrating with electricity. The palace has become a battlefield, and the weapons are not guns or swords, but prayers, ancient oaths, and the raw power of the spirit. While the screaming tree was shaking the very earth, the Golden Crown elders were gathered in a secret room, their faces pale. They finally understood that this was not just a case of husband and wife wahala. No, this was a spiritual debt that was demanding payment in full. The priest from Ghana, sweating and trembling, told them that the tree was crying because it was fed with a covenant in 2016. A covenant that promised these women a permanent place in the palace no matter what. Now imagine the Golden King in the middle of all this. He was trapped in a vision, seeing the moment he signed away his peace for a temporary solution years ago. They say he was talking to people no one else could see, pleading for mercy. His body was hot like fire, and no amount of water could cool him down. The physicians, including Dr. Elizabeth, were confused. Medical science had no answer for a man whose soul was being tugged by a spiritual rope. But let me tell you about the strength of a woman who knows her God. Queen Naomi did not move an inch. While others were running out of the palace because of the terrifying sound, she remained in that room with the Golden King. She began to sing songs of praise that sounded like a war cry. She knew that if she blinked, the shadows would swallow her husband whole. The women who were causing this storm, the ones many called the Oloris, were not hiding. One of them, Olori's shadow, was seen walking through the hallway with a strange calmness. She wasn't afraid of the screaming tree. In fact, it was as if the screams were music to her ears. Reports say she was heard whispering to the walls, reminding the palace that she was brought in with a promise, and her promise was written in a place where no human hand could reach.
The Golden Crown elders finally made a move. They approached the tree again, this time with the land of the Golden Crown's own traditional symbols. They tried to silence the wailing, but the more they chanted, the louder the tree cried. It was like the tree was a mouth for all the secret the Golden King had tried to bury. People outside the palace walls started gathering, whispering in hushed tones. They knew that if that tree didn't fall, the glory of the kingdom was at risk. Suddenly, a message came from the priest who had been watching the spiritual gates. He said there was a connection between the oath taken in 2016 and a certain ritual that happened in the land of the Golden Crown years before. He said the women had formed a fake peace circle, but inside that circle was a trap. They had joined their voices together to create a binding spell that would make it impossible for the Golden King to ever truly be free of them, even if he loved Queen Naomi with all his soul. The intensity was too much. The Golden King's heart began to fail him. He looked at Queen Naomi and said, "The weight is too heavy, let me go." But Queen Naomi, with a voice like thunder, replied, "You are not going anywhere. The God of restoration is here." She called upon the Golden Crown elders and told them to stop looking at the tree and start looking at the source. She told them that the oath was a lie built on deception, and any house built on a lie must surely fall. At that moment, a great wind started blowing. It wasn't a normal wind. It blew through the palace, knocking over charms and artifacts. It blew toward the screaming tree, and for a second, the wailing stopped. There was a silence so deep it was scary. Then a crack, a sound like a giant bone breaking, echoed throughout the land of the Golden Crown. The people held their breath. Was the tree finally giving up, or was the oath about to claim its final prize? The struggle for the soul of the king was at its peak, and everyone knew that by daybreak, the land of the Golden Crown would never be the same again.